Convincing Game 7 victory, SGA Finals MVP. Jalen capped off a great series, 20 points. Chet had 18 after a dud in Game 6. Tons of steals, great defense.
5 blocks?
Yeah. How will you remember this Thunder team?
Look, not avoiding this question at all, but I just think it depends on what they do going forward. If they become a dynasty, whether it's a mini dynasty even, like you were saying in the last segment, who's going to win 2? You know, if they win 2, or if they become like the Duncan Spurs and win 4 in 10 years, 5 in 15, whatever,
amazing.
Then this will be viewed as an all-time great team, and all their key players, the coach, Presti, the big 3 will be hallowed. That's what will happen. They will go down in history, you know, as those guys. If it's a one-off, then I don't think they'll be remembered that fondly. It won't be, nobody will rip them a championship's a championship. But it'll be like, well, Denver probably would have beat them had they, MPJ couldn't even raise his arm before the jersey. Right, and then Halliburton gets hurt in Game 7, like the Pacers' best player. So Indy wasn't even that good, and they weren't supposed to go 7 with them, and they almost beat them at their. So I think if it's a one-off, it won't. It all might even be like Toronto, that Toronto team that beat Golden State. If it's a one-off, now I don't think it'll be. I think they'll get a championship at some point.
I'm shocked.
You think if it's a one-off, this team gonna be
I think when you look back, you don't see the stats that MPJ was hurt. I think you look back at the stats and say they kicked everybody's butts all year long. They played great.
They didn't really kick Denver's butt. They beat them in 7.
They ran into the best player in the world and then dispatched him in Game 7 by a lot.
Because 2 of their 4 players were injured, 2 of their top 4.
Hold on, KW. So you're saying, like, when we call up the historic net ratings, there's going to still show up.
Most wins in a season. They're right there with the Jordan Bulls and the Warriors that didn't win. Like, that matters.
So, okay, so here's the thing. We like this graphic that I don't think the average NBA fan, I think when they do most wins in a season, they're talking regular season, right? And they're right on the outside of the very top of that.
They're still up there.
Right, no. So
and they're blasting teams. We keep them like, this and the threes and this.
Well, but so here's the reason I brought up the net rating thing. I do think it's totally on the board. Right now, they have the 4th best net rating ever. Is that what you showed me earlier? I think it's the 4th best net rating of all time. I think is what you showed earlier.
Yeah, I did point differential.
Okay, point differential. Yeah, same. Birds of a different feather, but similar. I think it is very on the board that in 10 years, it's the 8th best. That this is going to be like best offenses ever, where it is regularly like we're the best team. And so here is the point that I'm making. There are not, Wilds. There is only one-time champion that is historically remembered. And honestly, historically remembered might be overstating it, because whenever Brew and I mention this team, you get annoyed because you're like, nobody cares about the 83 Sixers. Only you guys care about the 83 Sixers. Every other team, and the 04 Pistons.
Including the number 1 one on that graphic, the Bucks. And they had Jabbar.
And so the other one-time champions that are contemporary that we think of, they not only made another finals, made another Game 7 of the finals, and they were kind of iconic for different reasons. The 04 Pistons because of the upset, and the 08 Celtics because of the big 3 component of it, and that they were, both of them in the next 2 years, where it's back in the finals. So, like, if Brew's hypothetical of, if this team, like all of our most recent champions, next year goes out in round 2 and doesn't in the next few years come close to another finals, do I think they will be remembered similarly to the other Oklahoma City team that won the title, the 79 Supersonics? Yeah, maybe, which is not that well remembered. Because they don't have, you know what
I think they'll be different than that team because they got SGA. They have a legit.
But again, I do think they are going to be in the mix for years to come. And so I do think this is going to be, when we think of like the 2020s basketball, this is going to be one of the first teams we think of. And what I will remember about them is that defense that was just unique to what everyone else in the league was doing. As far as the waves of guys they could send at you, and the ability to just, it felt in a way that the pre-KD even, the peak Steph Warriors, it felt like, man, you're going to come out after halftime, and they're going to hit 4 threes in 90 seconds, and the game's going to be over. Like, that's what's going to happen. That I felt that way about these Thunder on defense throughout the playoffs. Like as you were saying, you think the game's close, but you are just a couple minutes of sloppy ball handling away from it not being close.
Just bring it. I'll bring it to SGA, and maybe we'll do this later. And you kicked it around on the call, so I'll throw it to you, Brew. Do you think there's a chance that this is remembered as, outside of Luka, the final another torch pass from LeBron and Steph, where Joker got one, Tatum got one, Giannis got one, SGA got one? It's now like the official, like, all right, it's now yours. I mean, granted, Steph got one in the middle of there, so that kind of screws it up.
And he's younger than LeBron, in fairness. I think that's a great point, because throughout this series, or maybe even before it, I was feeling like, and maybe said it a few times, this is a passing of the torch from LeBron and Steph to the next generation. Now, does one of these guys, these superstars, emerge and take over the era? Or is it just, it's going to be a bunch of, like, does Ant win it next year? Does Luka win it the year after that, or vice versa? Like, so, but I do feel like, I mean, if Luka won it, obviously next year, LeBron would be in that mix. So,
it
feels different. It certainly feels that way right now.
All of the guys who are in the firm argument for 5 best players in the league now have one but Luka. And Luka got to one. You know what I mean? It's not like Luka. And so, like, they have all been to the finals. Tatum's been there twice. Luka's been there once and lost. And everyone but Luka's won one, which does put a weird new pressure on Luka, because now all of a sudden, for a long time, Luka was ahead of his contemporaries. And now it's like, whoa.
Rampant, you know,
so I'm not trying to diminish at all what this team did. I think what they did was great. And I said the other day, you can have had one of the greatest seasons of all time, even if I don't think you are one of the greatest teams of all time. Mm-hmm. But I do think that this team doesn't have enough iconography to be remembered historically without really putting their imprint on the decade.
Right.
I just think, you know what, I just don't.
Right.
I think I don't think that's unfair.
No, it's a little it's a little Spursy. Like, they're just very, very good.
Yeah, and if they keep winning, I mean, even though people think of that Spurs team as dull or whatever, that we regard them as a all-time great team.
And I know that they didn't have the same regular season, so it's not a similar comp. But there is, like, again, to do an awkward cross-sport thing, but it's like, how is history going to remember Stafford's Rams? And it's like, oh, they won the Super Bowl that year. Like that, you know what I mean? But the lack of...
I view that as, like, this guy was on a losing team, and now he's a winner.
But you're zooming in further. Right. The point is, history doesn't regard that team.
Right.
They're a team that history regards them just as a team that won the Super Bowl. And I don't think, again, I think OKC is going to have enough success that that's not going to be the case.
I agree.
But if they follow the same path, none of us thought when Giannis won the championship that he would not play in another conference finals in the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
All of us thought that would have been insane. He was around the same age Shai is right now, I think a touch older. Shai turns 27 in a couple weeks.
Like, Shai's teammates are so young.
Of course. My point, though, is, but if that's the next 5 years for the Thunder, 1 year lost because one guy gets hurt, 1 year lost because a different guy gets hurt, 1 year lost
then they got to fire Dagno. That's the rule.
Yeah.
You win the championship, you got to fire your coach
Think
in 700
about
days.
Denver.
Yes.
Like, that run was so impressive because obviously you had Joker, and then you had Jamal playing great, Murray. But now, do we look at them as, the championship team, it was great.
But is it correct?
But we don't think much about it.
Indiana was leading at half without Halliburton, but couldn't withstand the Thunder's offense, couldn't solve their historically great defense. They were a few minutes away from what would have been, by the odds, the unlikeliest championship of all time preseason-wise. How will you remember this Pacers team? Now, this is oddly going to be complimentary.
So the other thing wasn't negative, but I do This is I think there is only one in the last 25 years and maybe longer finals loser that is looked at like great job by them. That's an all. You know what? And it is for their star player. It was their crowning accomplishment.
Chris Paul's Suns?
What? No, because they were up 2-0. No, I maybe you guys disagree, but I think you'll agree once I say it. Iverson Sixers. Iverson Sixers. It was like, good job. You made it to the finals. You stole that game.
Right.
You stepped over.
4-1.
Right.
I mean, I guess.
But I agree.
You stepped over Ty Lue.
You stepped over Ty Lue. You ran into this juggernaut.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that team is every other like memorable finals loser. It's because of something awful. You know what I mean? It's something that they screwed up.
Yep.
I think this Pacers team is going to be like that in that when you talk about like that was a hell of a loss.
Yeah.
And you normally don't see that in the finals.
This went 7.
And right, this one went 7, and you have the kind of the history, the tragic history of what happened to Halliburton.
Great call on Iverson. I agree with that take. That's a good take. But I disagree on that we'll remember this Pacers team like that. I think the reason we remember that Philly team is because of AI. AI is an icon.
Cabs in my ear talking about Aaron McKee.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 6 feet tall.
Yes.
They took all the awards that year, and mainly him with the MVP, but Larry Brown was Coach of the Year. Dikembe Mutombo was Defensive Player of the Year. They won 60-some-odd games. But Iverson, it was all about AI. It was this young guy who's changing the league. He was the first to wear cornrows.
Yeah.
People say Spreewell. I believe it was Iverson. First to wear cornrows, which was a big deal back then in the late 90s when he did it. He brought the merger of hip hop and the NBA, the way everything. He changed it all. And I think that's why we remember that team so much.
But you don't think we will, for very different reasons, remember every time we talk about a guy, as Wilds put it, laying it all on the line, risking it all to win, playing through this is going to be what people bring up. You know what I mean? Like that, there will be a historical resonance, tragically, because of the injury that would not have existed if he had made it through the game and they just lost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That made this team more memorable and sympathetic.
I don't feel as strongly about that, but it's possible for sure.
Yeah.
I do feel this way. It was their grade for the season is A. Like I would say A+ if you won the championship, but an A. Everybody in Indiana won. Rick Carlisle, we look at him even greater than we did already.
Yep.
Halliburton, despite the injury, we look at him as T.J. McConnell, like Obi Toppin, Mathurin.
Yeah, everyone but my guy
Siakam, we were
Miles
talking about
Turner.
maybe being
Miles Turner let me down a little.
Maybe being a Hall of Fame. It was a great season. There's no other way to slice it for obviously with the
Tyrese's
injury.
daddy. Everybody.
But yeah, I mean everybody won. But I don't know. I mean, Iverson is such an icon.
No, I'm
maybe
not saying it's
Halliburton
more,
will become. He's different than Iverson, but maybe if he continues to be this type of clutch player and one of the best players in the league, then maybe it will be like that.
But don't you go ahead, KW.
No, I think that's a great point. The thing that I'm worried about, and again, I like it sounds strange. I think Halliburton's braveness should be